Hey guys, my name is Ren. Before I start this video, I just want to thank you guys for 2 subscribers. Oh my god, this has always been a big dream of mine and I can't believe we actually got 2 subscribers. Thank you very much. So a quick and big disclaimer guys, I'm dumb as f and I'm not claiming that the things I'm about to teach you in this video is the absolute best of the best. The only reason I'm making this video is because my classmates blackmailed me. I mean, asked me nicely. For this video, we will be exploring 6 exercises from our professor about functions. And since we'll be talking about functions, I will be assuming that you guys are already familiar with the more basic aspects of C++, such as variables, basic input-output, different operations, and stuff like that. Also, I've included timestamps in the description, so if you're watching this on YouTube, you can quickly skip between the exercises if you want. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, so to create a new project in Visual Studio, basically when you open Visual Studio you will probably get a window like this, but without these probably, because these are the stuff that I've created so far. But anyway, what's important is the part in this right side. So what we want to do is create a new project, and then either select empty project or console project. It's probably you can find it here, or you can search it for in this search box right here. Just search for the empty project or console project of C++. I prefer using the empty project because it actually makes me start from scratch. It's nothing wrong with using console app, but it's just personal preference, I guess. Okay, over here we will select where we want to save our project. So I'm just gonna select like new folder, I guess. Tutorial. I'm gonna save it here, and then over here I'm gonna put the project name. So for now, let's do exercise 1 since this is what we'll be doing first, and then press create. Okay, now that we're here in a blank project, let's go here to source files, add, and then new item, or Control Shift A. And then we're just gonna make our main .cpp. You can call this whatever you want. Okay, now we have our main.cpp. Let's include all the stuff that we need, basic stuff we need. IO stream for our input and output. Let's add our main function. Okay, now let's try to run a simple program, hello world, to see if the IDE actually works. I'm gonna input cout from std. Then let's input hello world, and then our ending brackets. To build and run your program, just click this button right here, or F5. Okay, as you can see, it works. But actually, I don't want to keep using this std keyword over here, so I'm just gonna use this command right here. So cout and cin and other stuff that uses std namespace can be used. So you can see it still works. So it says here, write a program that performs arithmetic division. The program will use 2 integers, a and b, obtained by the user, and will perform the division a divided by b. Store the result in another integer c, and show the result of the division using cout. In a similar way, extend the program to add, subtract, multiply, do modulo, and power using integers a and b. Modify your program so that when it starts, it asks the user which type of calculation it should do, then asks for the 2 integers, then runs the user-selected calculation and outputs the result in a user-friendly formatted manner. Okay, so a bunch of things we already know we can do. First, let's break down what needs to be done here. So basically, the professor wants us to do 6 arithmetic operations, so namely division, or like the 4 main arithmetic operations: add, subtract, multiply, and division. And then in addition, we're gonna do modulo and power. Okay, so another one is the professor is asking us to make a kind of a main menu so we can choose between the different operations. And then she also wants the output to be something like this. So we enter the 2 numbers and then the sum. Okay, another thing to take note here is she wants the result to be stored in a variable. So we have 3 variables so far, A, B, and C. Okay, actually to do this kind of calculator, you actually only need 2 variables because you can directly store the calculations in the cout. But since it is required here, we're gonna be making use of the 3rd variable. Okay, first thing I want to do is to make our main menu. So to create a main menu, usually just cout what it is you want to be displayed. So something like this, and then to duplicate this line, you just press Ctrl D, so it automatically pastes it. Copy and pastes. Okay, how many did we need? Like 6, and then the 7th one for exit probably. Okay, actually we're not gonna loop this because it doesn't say in the exercise that it needs to be looped. So it only needs to perform the operation once, so there's no need to do a while loop here. Okay, let's just edit these out. And then, okay, so the next thing we want to do is make another prompt for the input. And then we need a variable to store where the input is gonna be. So let's make a variable over here. And we're going to store it here. Okay, we have our basic structure for our main menu. Now we just need to add the functionalities so that we can actually perform our operations. So first of all, we need a add function. So let's go ahead and make that. Let's check first if the professor specified whether the functions have a data type and a return type. Okay, it doesn't seem like there is, so we can just use whatever kind of function we want. So the easiest type of function to use is a void function, so it doesn't return a value, and also actually we're gonna need a function that takes in arguments because we're gonna have, if you remember earlier, we're gonna have variables a and b. So in order to get that a and b from main to our functions here, we're gonna need a function with arguments. Let's declare over here the rest of our input variables, so our a and b, and then we're gonna ask for that input over here. So let's add an endl here just for better formatting. Then let's ask for the 2 numbers. Enter 2 numbers. And then we're going to cn that to A, and then cn that to B as well. Okay, when we do this, as you can see here, we already have 3 inputs. Actually, I'm gonna show you how cn kind of works. So I'm gonna print out all of our variables here. Okay, we're gonna run the program. And as you can see, it asks for our input. So normally what we can do is just, input one number, input the first number A, then another number B. Okay, and then it shows right here. Another way the input works in C++ is that in cin, you actually don't have to press enter to access the next cin. So we actually just need to use spaces and stuff like tab. Actually we can test that out right now. So we can input our input, use space, and then whatever input we put here, it's gonna be stored in the next cin because there's a space in between. It also works with tab. So if you tab and then input a number, as you can see, it prints out. It skips all the other, it skips these, because when we pressed space here, it immediately went over here the RC into A. So it skipped displaying this first. And there we go. So in other words, another way we can format this so the enter two numbers is we can just do something like this. So you enter two numbers in the same line. So you input a number, space, and then another number. Okay, let's continue building our function here. So it's gonna take in the two parameters over here, the A and B. So int A, int B. And then when we call the add function, let's just call it over here for now. We're gonna put here the A and B. So whatever values we have here that we inputted, it's gonna transfer over here. It's gonna call add, so it's gonna go back here. And then whatever values A and B has, it's gonna be put here respectively. So in order. Remember the order matters here because the A here is not actually the same as A here. Just because if it's the same A, it's gonna be an error because we declared the variable with the same name. So this is actually not the same as this. The way this transfers is based on their position. For example, if we put B and then A over here, the A variable is still going to be transferred here because this is the one that comes first, just like here, if you know what I'm saying. So in C++, the order matters in declaring the arguments. For simplicity's sake, we're just gonna declare this as the same as this. The next thing we need to do is actually perform the operation. Okay, now if we remember earlier, we were required to use a third variable, which is C. So that's what we're going to do. We're gonna declare C. Then we're gonna equate that to the operation for A and B. So in this case, it's gonna be A plus B. Now that we have C as our result variable, what we can do is now C out. So let's just copy what she did here. So the sum is 15. So let's C out. The sum is, and then C, like that. So when we actually run the program, let's just input whatever for input for now, and then the two numbers 2 and 3. Then as you can see here, the sum is 5. So basically the same thing is going to be used for all the other operations, just different stuff like this. So I'm gonna copy paste the first 4 basic operations. Here we go, and then let's just change all of this. So I'm gonna be right back. Okay, now that we have our 4 basic arithmetic operations over here, we need a way to select which operation we want. So for that, we're gonna just be using a basic switch statement. So let's do switch, and then our input variable, and then some brackets. Over here inside, we're gonna need a default case first. Usually I put this first. Then we're just gonna C out invalid input, something like that. And then let's go for case 1 now, which is gonna be the add function. So we're gonna call add, and then A and B. And then we're also going to be needing a break, so that without this break, it's going to keep continuing doing the next cases after the case that we selected. So when we put break here, after executing whatever is inside, it's gonna go out of the switch. So that's why we need a break here. Also, to make it look a little bit better for me personally, I'm just gonna do them all at the same line. Let's add the other cases. Okay, so let's actually test this if it works. For now, we have the first 4 arithmetic operations. Okay, so what do we want to actually use? By the way, you can zoom by control and then using the scroll wheel in Visual Studio. So I would like to do multiply, and then the 2 numbers I want to multiply are 2 and 4. So this should be 8. Okay, as you can see here, we are not yet done with our function. It's actually good to test your program once in a while to see if there are problems. So over here, just need to change these. There we go. Okay, let's actually try to use the divide function, because if I remember correctly, this is going to be a little bit different. So for example, we want to divide two numbers, let's say 2 and 4. The quotient is 0, where it needs to be 0.5. Okay, the reason this happens is because of the data type that we used in divide. So as you can see here, we're using int, which means integer, which means whole number. And 0.5 is not a whole number. So when C++ divided the two numbers, it actually put here 0.5. But because this is an integer, it only got the whole number part, which is 0. To fix this, you just need to change the data type basically, both for the result and the input variables. So just use float for now. You can use double and other more precise data types. Let's see if this works now. For divide 2 and 4 still, as you can see, it's printing out 0.5 now. Let's try a whole an improper fraction. For divided by 2, the quotient is 2, so it still works even if there is no decimal. Okay, so now let's add the other two operations. So let's start with modulo. Change this to modulo, and then just use this percent sign, and then the modulo, or the remainder, is C. Okay, and then for our power function now, just do power. Okay, so if you're a normal human being, what you can do to do this is basically include a math header, and then over here in the operation part, you just gotta do pow and then the two variables, and then the result is C. So let's try if this works. Actually, let's try the modulo first. So if we divide 4 by 2, there shouldn't be any remainder because the result is gonna be a whole number. Okay, this happened because we haven't declared 5 and 6 options in our cases here, so let's do that real quick. Okay, as you can see, that's the perfect example as to why I always put default here. Instantly when I saw the invalid input in my mind, I checked if I actually inputted 5, and I saw that I did. And so it could only mean that there's no 5 option in the switch, which in this case, that's actually the case, you know. Okay, now let's try it again. Okay, the output for this should be 0 because there is no remainder. Okay, the remainder is 0. Let's try something with a remainder. Maybe 2 and 4. 2 and 4. Okay, the remainder is 2. Okay, so it works. Now let's do our power. So 2, just do 2 raised to 2. This should be like 4. Yeah, the result is 4. Okay, so this is what we use when we're a normal human being. But if you are a smart ass like me, or in Philippine terms, we're gonna make use of our own thingamajiggy. So we're gonna delete this math.h, and then delete this. Actually, wait, does this still work even without the math.h? Okay, so we actually don't even need the math.th over here. What? I didn't know that. Anyway, let's do some big brain shit over here. We're gonna be making use of a for loop to do our power manually. So let's comment this for now. We're gonna use a for loop. So when we're using for loop, we always need to think about a range. So when we say range, it's gonna be like 0 to 12, 5 to 16. So the thing in common there is that there's always a starting point and an end point. So in the syntax or for loop, the first thing you need to input is the starting point. So we're going to be starting from 0 and then we're going to be ending. So this is the end point until whatever value we need. So for example 0 to 12, then it's going to be like this. For now I'm just going to be using B in this case. And then down here we're just going to redeclare our int c. We're gonna put that equal to 1. Then over here we do c equals c times a. Okay, so we're gonna times c, we're gonna multiply c by a b number of times basically. So if our b is for example 2, so it's gonna loop for 0 until 1 because 2 is not less than 2. No, actually to make this easier, let's do this to 1 and then do less than or equal here. So it's going to do this operation 2 times if our b is 2. Let's test if this actually works. So the result is c, still c, because it's gonna input the last value of c after this loop. So let's do 2 to the power of 2. It's gonna be 4. Okay, so it works, and we're just gonna delete this right now. Okay, so that's how you bida here, you know. Okay, so there we go. I think we're done now with exercise 1. Basically, all that we did is make individual functions for the 6 different operations. We made a main menu over here with 3 inputs, and then a case statement here, which is where we call the different functions. Okay, to make a new project, what you have to do is just go to File, New, and then New Project, or there's also a shortcut here. And just click this. But because I'm lazy as frick, I'm just gonna use this same thingy. So I'm gonna delete all of this, and we're going to start over. Create a calculator that takes a number, a basic math operator, and the second number, all from user input, and have it print the result of the mathematical operation. The mathematical operations should be wrapped inside of functions. Ooh, okay, so we actually didn't need to delete our stuff from earlier because it's basically just gonna be copy paste. So it's basically the same as exercise 1, but the difference is we're only going to be using the first 4 basic operations, and then the format in which we input our inputs. Okay, so over here, if you remember in the last exercise, the format of our input is that we choose first the operator, so 1 to 6, and then we input the 2 numbers that we will perform our operation on. In this one, what we're going to do is input the first number and then choose an operator. And actually, it actually says here, instead of using 1 to 4, we're gonna use the actual symbols for the operations and then the second number. Okay, so that's all the difference. So actually, I'm just gonna do Control Z over here. Okay, so we're just gonna delete our power and module here, and then we're also going to be deleting all of these. So let's delete these as well as this. Actually, I think we're gonna be deleting this as well. We're not gonna be using a switch. Okay, so basically what we need to copy paste is just these 4. Okay, let's start from scratch. So we already know that we need our first 2 input variables, and then for our operation we actually need to put the symbols now. So we're gonna use a char data type where we can store the operation. We're just gonna call it up. Okay, and then if you remember earlier how we input how our cin works, so let's do input, just plain input here, and then when we cin, if you remember the sequence of operations that we used here, first number a, the basic operator, and then the second number. So that's what we're gonna do here. First number, and then the operator, and then b. So when we do this, we're just gonna be using spaces to let the compiler distinguish which variables we're going to be using. Okay, so when we input, it's just gonna be something like this. It's gonna be 1 plus 2, and then something like that, you know. Now we're gonna, instead of using switch, we're gonna be making use of a if statement. So for example, if our operator is something like plus, and then what we're going to do is call the function add, and then we're gonna input the a and b there, something like this. And then else, this is the equivalent of the default case from earlier. We're just gonna put here invalid input. Actually, if there's only one line inside of the if statement, we don't need to make use of these brackets to save lines. Okay, let's try if this works. So we're gonna do 1 plus 1. 1 space plus space 1. Then as you can see, the sum is 2 already here. Okay, now we just need to do else if for the other operations. Op is equal to minus. Okay, copy paste this, then just change these. Okay, so it doesn't seem to me like there's anything wrong with this code. Let's check to see randomly which one we want. So I want to make use of the multiply function, so let's do 2 times 2 times 6, so this should be 12. The product is 12. So there we go. We're actually already done. This saved us some time because we already did this in the first exercise. But yeah, so if you skip to exercise 2 and you didn't watch exercise 1, you should probably watch that to see how we created this. Okay, now let's move on to the third exercise, which, if I remember correctly, is gonna be really easy. Write a program that calculates 6 to the power of 5. Declare your own function to do this. Oh, okay, so this is where we actually make use of the bida, if you remember earlier. Instead of using the power option, which is a predefined function, we're gonna be making use of our own function. So basically what I did earlier. So we already know from earlier how to do that. We're just gonna be making use of a power function over here. Same thing, it still takes an a and b, and then the result is c. Okay, let's input c as 1 as the starting value. For int I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to b, I plus plus, and then c. Actually, we're gonna be doing a little bit different here. So if you remember earlier, we did c equals c times a, but alternatively you can do c times equals a. So this is the two of these are the same. So when we make use of this, it's basically saying that the value of c is going to be equal to c times a. So the same thing. Actually, I plus plus is the same thing. Oh shit, what happened? You can actually write I plus plus as something like this. I plus equals to 1. So I is equals to I plus 1. So basically 1 plus 1 if our initial value is 1. Anyway, so yeah, we'll be making use of this one. Also, as you can see here as we said earlier in the if statements, if there's only one line of code inside, we don't need a bracket. Same thing over here in our for loop functions. Since there's only one line, we don't need to use bracket. Okay, so over here now, okay, let's check. Write a program that calculates 6 power of 5. Actually, the number is predetermined here, so we actually don't even need to make use of inputs. So when we call the function here, all we need to do is call it, and then do 6 and then 5. So as if you remember earlier how I said the order matters here, especially in the argument section. So 6, since this is the first variable in this argument, it's going to be stored in the first variable here in the function calling. So if you did 5 and 6 here, it's going to be, I think, different. Okay, actually, is it going to be different? Is this how power works? Let's actually check. If I remember correctly, this should be 7776. So no, the order actually really matters. 6, 5. This should be about 7k, 776. Yeah, 776. Actually, let's format this a little bit better. So instead of just saying the result is this, since there's only going to be one result based on this exercise, it's always going to be 6 and 5. Let's just put here a raised to b is something like that, and then we're missing brackets here. Okay, now let's see if this works. Wow! Okay, this bugs happen sometimes, so to fix it, just exit, run again, and there we go. 6 to the power of 5 is 776. Actually, since we made use of variables, it doesn't 6 and 5 doesn't even have to be constant. We can change it here. And as you can see, it also changes here because we made use of variables. Dude, variables are so freaking awesome, dude. It's actually such a blessing. It's so useful. Okay, now let's move on to exercise 4. Write a program that asks a name, and then say hello, and then use your own function that receives a string of characters and prints your hello message. Doesn't return anything, return type. So it receives a string, meaning it has arguments. When we say receive, it receives a data from int main to the function. So to do that, we're gonna need an argument, but we're not gonna be returning. So if we're not returning, that means we're going to be printing inside of that function. Okay, let's just replace this into function, and then instead of int a and b, we're gonna do string and then name. Delete this and then delete this. Okay, we need to ask the user to input their name. Let's do that. Cout enter name. Okay, and then we're gonna be making use of a string variable. Then we're gonna in that to name. Okay, after that we're gonna be calling this function, and then the argument is the name. So we're gonna pass the value, whatever value this has, to this, and then we're gonna be making use of that. So basically, what the exercise wants us to do is to see out the name, and then actually, okay, we're gonna just say hello, comma, and then the name. Let's do hello, comma, and then the name. Actually, let's do a little bit of more stuff here. Let's add an exclamation. Okay, input name, my name is Ren, and as you can see, hello Ren. Okay, you know what, I'm gonna be giving you a bonus lesson here. So when we use cin for string, actually when we do strings, okay, let's do it here. So let's redeclare the string here. Let's say Ren Yu. Actually, we need quotations over here. Okay, so we're gonna ignore the cin here because we're gonna declare Ren Yu here as the name anyway. Let's see if this works first. So enter name, whatever, it's still gonna be Ren Yu. Okay, as you can see, it works. So the good thing about string is that instead of an array of characters, strings can actually include spaces. So if you use characters here as an array character, it's going to be inputting the all the characters before the space, because similarly to cin, it actually terminates the thing when we use space or enter or tab. Anyway, when we use string, that doesn't happen, but that problem kind of revives when we use cin instead of literally declaring the string here. So if you did the same thing and then used a space, it's only gonna be inputting the ren, because like we said earlier how cin works, if we use space or enter or tab, it's going to put this into the next cin, the next word. But since we don't have a next cin here, it just like gets yeeted into the void or something. Okay, so to fix this, maybe you might think, let's just add another cin here for the last name. Okay, that works, but what if he has 3 names? So we actually have no way of knowing how many names the user will have. So in order to fix this, instead of using plain cin, we're going to be making use of getLine. So getLine is actually included in this header in the string function, the string header. Let's just include string here, and instead of cin, the syntax is really simple. So we just say getLine. So we're actually calling a getLine function similarly to this function. The first argument is cin, so we're gonna cin in the so when we call this getLine function, it's gonna be a cin, and then where we're going to store that cin, basically like this. So if we do this now, when we enter name Ren Yu, it's going to include all that is in the same line. So that's why it's getLine. It's going to get all of this line regardless of the spaces or tabs. Okay, exercise number 5. Let's see here. Write a program that asks for 2 numbers, compare them, and show the maximum. Declare a function called max2 that compares the numbers and returns the maximum. Okay, so it's going to be a function that asks for 2 numbers. So already we know there's 2 arguments, and then we're going to return the result. Okay, so this is going to be the first time that we'll be using a function that has a return type. Okay, so let's delete this as well as these. Okay, first let's input the 2 numbers. We have here int a and b. Okay, did she specify? Okay, so we can use whatever variables we want. Let's also remove that because we won't be needing it. So cout enter 2 numbers, cin a b, and then we need a function called max2. So we're gonna call max2, max underscore 2, and then the 2 arguments inside. Okay, there's gonna be an error here because we haven't created that yet. So since we know that there's going to be a return type, let's actually determine what kind of type that is. 2 numbers, and then compares them and shows which number is bigger. So the result is going to be an integer. So we're gonna be making use of an int type here. Int max2, and then the arguments. Okay, now we're just going to be comparing these 2. We're gonna be saying if a is more than b, then that means a is the bigger number. So we're just gonna return a. Else, we're just gonna be making use of else, return b. Okay, so what this is going to do, so for example, let's input 1 and 2, call max2 with the argument 1 and 2. 1 and 2 will be transferred here. 1, 2. Is 1 more than b? Nope. So we're just gonna go here and you're gonna say that b is the bigger number. So actually we're gonna cout here, cout the bigger number is this. Okay, so whenever we're making use of a function with a return type, automatically when we call the function, the whole value of this function is going to be whatever value is returned here. Okay, so this whole function functions as a kind of a variable, so we can put it inside of a cout, and it's going to cout whatever value here we have. So for example, if our data type is string, and then we return a string, it's going to print a string here. We made use of a boolean data type, it's gonna return either 0 or 1 for true or false. You know, stuff like that. Let's actually see if this works. We actually just kind of did it. I kind of forgot. I assumed it's going to work, but okay, let's do 1 and 2. Like our example from earlier, this should return 2. The bigger number is 2, and then let's try if the first number is the bigger number. So let's try 199 or like 98 or something. The bigger number is 100, so it actually works now. It's fairly simple, you know. Okay, for our last exercise, write a program that asks the user for an integer number and find the sum of all natural numbers up to that number. So we're going to be making use of a loop. So we're just going to sum. So for example, if we input 5, we're going to get the sum of all the numbers from 1 up until 5. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. This is going to be a loop. Actually, it says I write a program. Okay, it doesn't say here to use a function, but since our topic here is function, we're going to be making use of function. We're going to be making use of a simple function. Actually, let's make use against a function with return type, since we've always been using void type throughout this video. Okay, let's delete all of this. Delete this. Okay, so now we have to decide what to call our function. Let's just call it function. So it's int function, then something like this. And then inside, we're just going to be making use of just one, I think. Yeah, just one integer number. Oh shit. So int a, or like int num, since there's not going to be a b. Then we're going to input it here as well. So cout enter number, you know how it is, cin num. Okay, and then we're going to call the function. Gonna put num there. Okay, at this point you guys should be familiar how everything works now, especially the typing process of the code. Okay, so over here, when we call this, we're gonna pass num into here, so we're gonna do our operation here. Okay, I'm thinking let's use another variable to store the result, and we're gonna put that result equals to 0 for now. Then we're gonna be making use of a for loop. So if you remember earlier, a for loop is basically just a range. In this case, our range will be from 1 up until the number that we inputted here. So int I is equal to 1 until I is less than or equal to num, and then I++, so we can increment it by 1. Okay, for this one, what we want to do is result equals, or what? Equals result plus I. Okay, let's see here. So for the first loop, it's gonna be I equals 1, and result, our starting value is 0, so it's going to be result equals to 0 plus 1, so the result is going to be 1. In the next iteration, since it's going to be I++, I is going to be equal to 2. It's going to be result equals 1, since it was 1 earlier. 1 plus 2, so it's going to be 3. Then for the next iteration, this is going to be 3. This will be 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. And then it's gonna be 4 plus 6. Okay. Let's just since we're using an int, a function with return type, and obviously we're going to return the value. So let's just return the last value of result. So after going through this loop, the last value of result will be returned here, and then we're gonna do this. Let's just add another one. Result is equal to something like this. Okay, let's think of a number. Let's say 3. So if you input 3, it's going to be 1 plus 2 plus 3, which is going to be 6. And voila, that actually works. I was actually not sure if this was going to work. It's actually really simple now that I think about it. Let's try a bigger number. Maybe it's just a fluke. Let's try 5. 15. So 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 5 is 15. So yeah, this works. Okay, so if you remember our shortcut earlier, we can also just shorten this into this. So result is going to be equal result plus I, and then just return this. Wow, it's actually pretty nice, pretty cool program right here. Okay, that would be it for today's video. If you learned something, or if you at least enjoyed the video, feel free to share the video, share it with your classmate, or share it with your mom, I don't know. This has been your boy Ren. See you guys next time. Bye bye.